without further ado, please give it up for my man, WyKing.
Peace. How's everybody doing?
Peace, peace.
Yeah, peace. Can you hear me in the back? If you can hear me in the back, put your hands up. In the back? All right, cool. So, man, it's good to be here. You know, we at an institution of higher learning. What we're going to do it from our perspective. Appreciate, let's give it up for Mikeskee and the whole UW Hip-Hop Association, you know. All the B-boys and B-girls doing their thing. So, you know, when you're dealing with hip-hop and Summit, you know, for us, hip-hop, for me, hip-hop means, you know, it really means something. It goes deep, you know. And just to keep it simple, hip means to educate and hop means to elevate. You know, hip is the intelligence and hop is the movement, the expression, the activity that goes with it. And when we talk about a summit, you know, a summit is the highest point. And at a summit is where you sum it up. You know, the highest point on our body is the mind. So we had to have the knowledge panel, you know, where we bring it in, you know, we deal with things on that higher plane. Because then the artists, the dancers, the graffiti artists, the MCs, they come and put the ideas and make them appealing. Hip-hop is revolutionary culture, you know, and they said, there's a quote that says, the job of a revolutionary artist is to make revolution irresistible, you know, because just talking, you guys know how boring the professors are, right? But when the MCs get on the stage, you know, and do all of that, it gets appealing. So, we got panelists that are distinguished in their own areas representing hip-hop. And we're gonna start off, we gotta wait for one more step. So we'll start, you know, at the other end. We got Bboy Free. Give it up, you know what I'm saying? I see the young B-boys and girls doing their things. You always gotta give it up to those that come before you, you know, pay homage. He's one of the representing Circle of Fire and Soulshifters crew. So yeah, instead of just, you know, me trying to, you know, introduce, it'd be better if each one of them introduce themselves and just let the people know, you know, a little bit about your background, you know, where you come from as far as culture, whatever, and how you came to hip-hop and the impact that hip-hop has had on your life.
Thank you, thank you. I'm gonna try to keep it short. That could be a long story. So,
but 5 minutes.
Hi. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me here. Thanks for reaching out. You know, it's definitely an honor to be part of the panel, especially when we're talking about hip hop culture. I grew up in the Philippines. You know, so to make it quick, basically, I moved to the States in 1989, not knowing anything about hip hop, even the culture. You know what I mean? I was exposed to breaking. Through a movie, Beat Street, you know what I mean? And that's how I got started. Yeah, a lot of you guys seen it, but that's what got me started, and that basically brought me to the world of hip-hop culture, you know? So not knowing anything about hip-hop, you know, I just started breaking, and I've been dancing for almost, man, I don't know, over 15 years. So I'm 34 now, I'm still dancing, I'm loving it, but as far as like being introduced to the hip-hop culture, you know, back in, I think it was 96, 97, I went to a jam called Bboy Summit, which is also another hip-hop summit where they basically teach you the culture of hip-hop, you know. So at a young age, I was exposed to that when I was like maybe 12, or actually 15 or something like that. And it's a beautiful thing. So I'm here, and I'm still doing this thing, and hopefully I can answer some questions for y'all. Respect.
That's what's up. Give it up. Free, y'all. Powerful name.
Well, I can't follow that. My story with hip-hop, I guess, doesn't run that deep. I moved back to Seattle most recently about 4 years ago from San Francisco, and I started a record label out here called Members Only. I mean, I've always been really into hip-hop. Hip-hop's been very important to me in my life. I don't think it was as important to me in my formative years as it is now. How it really came to be was I work with business. I'm an entrepreneur. I like to put things together and make industry work. And moving to Seattle, I was fortunate enough to be surrounded with a lot of really, really talented artists. And having lived in a few different cities around this country, I can say that without bias. And watching a lot of my friends come together and do their things and express themselves, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to assist them. I wanted to help them. And I wanted to play my role in the game. And I've been doing that for 3 years now. So.
Peace. My name is Jamil Suleman. I'm an MC, teaching artist, jack of all trades, farmer, meditator. I draw cool stuff, you know what I'm saying? But I'm from Kirkland, Washington originally. I was born in Minneapolis, but I was raised on the east side, so as a person of color, you know, as a Muslim, I'm Indian, whatever, blah, blah. You can check whatever box you want to check. Woo, there you go. Yes? Was you Indian? Are you Indian? Oh, you Muslim? Okay, cool. You got one of them, though. You're cool. All right. But hip-hop for me was something that I could relate to because it was something that unified all the parts of my life, you know what I'm saying? And I really couldn't relate to being in the suburbs as much. The culture just wasn't relatable to me, and it wasn't really accepting to me, so hip-hop is what I gravitated towards. And so to me it was active, you know, kind of seeing what unity could look like, because hip-hop was always embracing to everybody that seemed to be, you know? So that's how I came to it, and through it, it taught me everything about politics and social sciences, and I learned even deeper things later on in life. So to me, it's been a gateway to this extreme amount of knowledge. Plus I rap, have fun doing that, you know what I mean? And just have fun doing it, because it's all about having fun, man. It's hip-hop. Thank you. Peace.
Peace, everybody. My name is Bboy FeverOne. I'm a member of the DVS crew, Rocksteady crew, and a Seattle resident, and I was born and raised here, actually in this neighborhood. I grew up here in Wallingford, and I've been breaking since 1982, so I'm one of the original cats that, you know, was doing it back when breaking first hit the scene here in Seattle. And, you know, to make a long story short, I moved to New York in '96. I lived out there for about 11 years, pursued my career in b-boying, got down with the Rocksteady crew, did lectures, you know, a lot of different colleges, off-Broadway, commercials, and MTV, VH1, the whole, like, industry thing. I'm back here in Seattle, you know, I just wanted to come back, get back to the culture here. I also started teaching out here in the early 90s. Me and my partner Kamikaze, we were going around to a lot of middle schools in the early 90s. And through that, we were able to touch the next generation of the youth. And a lot of the b-boys who are doing things now, such as Massive Monkeys and Battle Reflex, and a lot of these cats were getting down back in the day. And you know, just a pleasure to be able to represent the city and, you know, the history of hip-hop. So.
When you left off, please right into the next question. But can we give a hand, everybody, for the panel right here? And for the people that are not focused, in the back, it's a little distracting. A lot of the noise that's coming from the back and people trying to listen to the panel. So if we could just, you know what I'm saying, respect what's happening right here, respect that fifth element, respect the knowledge and the importance of that, because it's all about peace, and we got to be smart to have peace. Otherwise, we're going to be banging each other in the head, you know. So let's respect what's happening right here. As a matter of fact, you might just learn something if you listen to the people that have been doing what you like to do. All right, so right there, we wanted to just get into what is hip hop to you? What's your definition of hip hop?
Basically, the way I look at hip hop is it's like a subculture. It's a culture that was created out of the Bronx with DJing, MCing, graph writing. You know, those are the main elements. And DJ Bboy, MCing, graph writing, y'all know the elements of hip hop. And basically, I just hold it true to what it was when it first started. A lot of people who are in the rap industry don't really acknowledge hip hop. They don't really acknowledge the other elements of hip hop. And if you want to consider yourself hip hop, you really got to understand the history of hip hop and what the word really means. And so, to me, you know, it's about just doing your history. It's been going around since the early 70s, and there's a lot of books out there. There's classes up in your college right now. You know, you can ask any questions that you have for us. So to me, hip hop is really just basically the history of the way it was created. And you have the knowledge part of the history of the elements. They say is the fifth element, and that's so important because without the knowledge, you really don't know where you're gonna go with it. You know, the same way they say you don't know where you've been, or you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. You know, if you've been dancing for more than half of your life, or if you've been into hip hop in general, for more than half of your life, you should definitely know what you're doing and where it came from. If not, you're just really just doing it for, I don't know, whatever reason, but, you know, I look at it as 10 years is a good benchmark. And if you've been doing this thing for 10 years, you should definitely know everything there is to know about it.
Each person is going to, touch on that. If you got something to add on different perspective.
What is hip hop? Where? Okay. I mean, hip hop to me, it's all of those things that Fever just said. Of course, the history, the deeper analysis of like the social roots of where it came from, the indigenous African lineage and all that. But to me, more than anything, hip hop is a name for creative energy when people are being themselves. It's just a title that they put on another version of what's already been going on as as humanity. You feel me? So like, I feel like when people go through oppression, the art is the realest. And so right now they call it hip hop. But that's happening all the time, you know what I mean? And so it's just a title, it's just a name. But it kind of reminds me of like, I don't know if you guys have read The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Definitely read that. That's the most hip hop book, I swear to God. It's like from 3th century BC China. But the reason I say it is because he's talking about flow in there, and he says that what you call the Tao is not the Tao, but to me, that what you call hip hop is not hip hop because it's almost unnameable, you know, how it gets expressed. So,
I guess I most closely agree to what he says. I think really the most important thing is there's absolutely no reason why I should tell you what hip hop is. Hip hop's, that term is coming up on 40 years old now, and I was just telling Free that I didn't get into hip hop until I was really going to UW. I started as a punk and slowly switched over. So most of what I know about hip hop is retroactive, going back and learning and educating myself. But so I didn't have that experience of watching hip hop grow up. But I got to look back and see what people said were stages of hip hop. So I mean, whatever I tell you now is probably going to be some stage that someone's going to look back and say, oh, that was what hip hop was like then. I mean, there's music coming out now that I've heard half the people I've spoken to say, oh, that's not hip hop. And then 2, 3 years later, they're like, oh, that's the illest hip hop shit there ever was. Like, that's the future of hip hop. And that's important. Like, fuck hip hop if it gets stagnant. Hip hop was never meant to be stagnant. Like, it's meant to be a dynamic art form. It's meant to be a youthful art form. It's meant to be a form of expression for what you, the youth, feel. An empowerment of people who don't have other outlets for power. So, you tell me what hip hop is and where it's going next.
To me, what hip hop is basically about the community. You know what I mean? Like if you look at the history of hip hop, you know, it came at a point where people were struggling. You know what I mean? And they had this beautiful thing come up where it involves music, dance, art, and it brought people together. You know what I mean? So to me, what hip hop is, and it's gonna go on like he's talking about, the way it evolves, you know, it's according to the people that are involved at the moment. You know what I mean? So to me, hip hop is about community. It's about uplifting the community. It's for the youth. You know, so it's there to give us a positive energy. You know what I'm saying? So we can turn into something when we need, you know, that outlet. So, in my experience and what I've experienced through hip hop, it's about the community.
Cool. So, does anybody in the audience have a question yet? You know, we want to make sure this is a two-way conversation. Anybody? Any questions for the panel? Right here.
The Tao Te Ching. I'm gonna write it down for you. I got you. I'm not gonna. Let's go and spell it out. I got you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, one of the things I see just being in this room, it's like being in the United Nations right now, right? You know, even just the panel. You know, you said you were, you know, from India. What's up? You said the Philippines. What would be your
Seattle.
Seattle, okay. Ethnic background.
Seattle.
Okay. How about you, Dave? Okay. All right. Well, I want to get your perspectives on, you know, how this really has the potential. You know, you spoke about young, you know, throughout the world, young people are still struggling. We saw the role that hip hop played, like in the whole North Africa and the situations over there. And outside the country, you know, hip hop is a little more used in a, you know, to empower people deal with improving their conditions, whereas here it's more, you know, on a commercial level. What do you feel is the potential, you know, and anybody can jump in on this, you know, for the next level of hip hop? It's like, we're all in the building right now, but are we all plotting on how the world's going to do? We got our own new world order scheme, you know, what do you think about that? You know what I mean? Go ahead.
I'll just touch on it lightly. I've been teaching the youth, you know, more than half of my life, you know what I mean? And that's the key to the future. You know, I've been teaching people that are, you know, in their late 20s now. I'm still teaching in middle schools right now. I touch the youth with grade schoolers. And that's the only way that this culture is going to stay alive, is if you pass it to the next generation. If you don't, then they're not going to understand what hip-hop really is. You know what I mean? I could do a ballet spin into a splits, and then I could say that's hip-hop. But if I was breaking in the 70s or 80s, and I don't see that as something that I truly feel is hip-hop, I'm not going to feel that. The only way that we're going to be able to keep this culture alive is passing it to the next generation, learning the way it started, learning who the forefathers of hip-hop are, who the people that were doing it in the beginning, because you can still find that information. You can still find information of people that created moves, people that created the scratch. For example, Theodore. That was a Theodore. So, I mean, you know, if you do your history, it's all about passing it to that next generation, and that's the way hip-hop is going to stay alive.
Okay. What was the question one more time? Sorry.
So, it's very international in here, right? There's a lot of things happening in the world. You know, where's the potential of hip-hop, you know, to influence it, and what direction do you think it should be, you know, it can go and should go?
I feel like hip-hop is a bridge, you know, in a lot of ways. Again, it's just something that people have in common, and it's something that people can easily relate to. I feel like an example of that is Tupac, the figure of Tupac. I had the opportunity, I think that might have been for Tupac right there. Or the hologram Tupac just showed up in the back. No, but for me, like, I was able to travel, you know what I mean? And I went to South Africa. I have some family that's originally from South Africa, so it was like a deep trip for me. And even in the ghettos over there, you got paintings of Tupac, you know what I'm saying? And they're bumping Pac, and they got West Side tatted on them, and they're showing me their gang tats, like they're, you know, I mean, that's the influence hip-hop has. So, I feel like the thing is that hip-hop has the ability to bridge people from all sorts of different type of, so we're already here in the same building together. At this point, it's kind of like what we were talking about before, to expose what we can share. Like, what do you have that you can give? You know what I mean? If you break, you spit, whatever, but now we're looking at different situations, climate, political climate, social climate. And because that's the case, everyone got to wake up and let them know what they have to say about that and what we can contribute, because we're going to have to rely on each other as a community. We've lost that, to me. I feel like the community aspect becomes less and less what's considered hip-hop. And now hip-hop is more about an MC, just one rapper on top. And it lost this, but I feel like this is really what hip-hop is about. This right here is like it. I feel like we're doing it right now. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just glad to be here. It's an honor,
I feel like I've answered this question for you before.
You're back, man.
Right.
And now it gets spicy.
I mean, I agree with what they say. I think the most important thing is education. Always, like, I don't think there's really any need for us to control where hip-hop goes or control what it does. Like, it is what it is. Like, the most important thing is that you know what came before you, and that you take time to listen to stuff like this, people's experiences, and oral tradition handing down has been part of our culture forever. Hip-hop is one other way of doing it. It unites us by what is important to us. So as long as you keep that close, like, I don't think it's important where it goes. It'll go in the right direction if we're all educated together.
Are we all educated? That's the question. With mainstream music, hip-hop is making you run around just bow, bow, burr, burr, you know what I mean? Are we all educated? Okay. At one time, hip-hop was a powerful tool for education, you know what I'm saying? So, do we need that, or do we care about that?
Well, just to touch on that, definitely it's important to be educated of what hip-hop is, its history. Talk about the international scene. I've been blessed to be able to travel the world because of dance, and I've seen cultures like different countries from Europe, from Asia, that actually embrace hip-hop as a culture. A lot of us here from the U.S., look at it differently. Some of us think about it, oh, that's in the 80s. You know what I mean? But over there, they did their history. They've studied, from the outsider looking in. Hip-hop to them is definitely a great culture, and they embrace it. Being from other cultures, being from different languages and different countries, we all can communicate through hip-hop, you know what I mean? So I think, and you touched on this earlier, and I'm gonna quote Mos Def. He was talking about, what's hip-hop going, where's the hip-hop going, and he was saying, you better ask yourself, where you think you're going. If you're involved in hip-hop culture, if you're out of it, you know what I mean, like a hip-hop person, you're studying the culture, ask yourself where you want to go, you know what I mean? And you could be one of those people that actually can revolutionize where this culture is going. Take that to yourself. If it's that important to you, I think that's where we can go with hip-hop,
Word.
Can I throw one back at you?
Sure.
Get a little antagonistic over here. In reference to hip-hop's ability to educate, in answering this before, I don't think, for me, and I have a feeling some of these guys might disagree, maybe not, but for me, I think that it's not necessarily the main role of hip-hop to educate us as a people. And I've said before, and I'll say again, I think it's an unfair burden to place on hip-hop. It separates us from it. It places expectations on it that then we have to live up to, and we may or may not. I think the important thing is for us to all educate ourselves individually. But if we can use hip-hop as a forum to come together and for us to talk to each other, for us to relate on common interests, that value of the culture, as with any culture, is important. And I think in order to be part of that culture, to be educated in it, and to know what it means to you and to other people and the people who engage in it with you, you need to educate yourself
is education. I feel like the real hip-hop, you know, if you look at the roots of hip-hop, it's automatically education. If it's not educating you, I have to question if it is really hip-hop. Because hip-hop came from a revolutionary background. You know, you're talking about oppression. These people were coming out of the streets when Reagan was pumping crack in the streets. So you can't, I mean, you know, the idea is hip-hop is automatically education. It's not just entertainment. That entertainment shit is not hip-hop. Hip-hop is community, hip-hop is building bridges, hip-hop is bringing positive to the world, peace, love, unity, having fun. Hip-hop is remembering the roots, you know what I'm saying, of some of the most oppressed people, the African-American, African, indigenous, native women, all of that. You know what I'm saying? Hip-hop is representing that because at this point, humanity done fucked up. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry to say, you know what I mean, but you already know. I know you already know. You know what I'm saying? I know you already know. He's like, I'm gonna just break my way out of here, you know? But, yeah, so I feel, you know, just to wrap up on that, I feel like it automatically has to educate and have a reference to the history of where it came from, which is the revolutionary roots of it. So, yeah.
I just want to jump in on that real quick and say, hip-hop is education no matter which way it goes. Whether it's negative education or positive education, when you open your mouth, every single person in here is a student and a teacher. So what you say and what you don't say, what you do and what you don't do are both forms of education at all times, you know what I mean? I think it's just a matter of being conscious of what you want to put out there. Right? And understanding and having that power. How many people heard of the Last Poets? Because if you're into hip-hop, you need to know who the Last Poets are. That's where, how many people heard of Gil Scott-Heron? All right, so this is where hip-hop, go listen to them, and then you'll understand hip-hop is not just anything that we do or say. I can't get with that. That's like saying Italian food is anything. No. There's certain ingredients that make Italian food. There's certain ingredients that make, you know, Mexican food, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So there has to be some levels of what's what and what's not, you know? I think you were gonna jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. And you know, at the end of the day, if you're doing your history, I've been like pulling this history thing through every time, but if you're doing your history and you are understanding what you're doing, you're learning something. Sitting at this panel, like I said, I'm a student. I'm a student of hip-hop every day. I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm still a student. I'm always going to be a student. I'm always going to be learning new things about this culture. And then just the one other thing to add, hip-hop to me is about being the best that you can be. Alright? When you're talking about hip-hop, you're talking about real hip-hop, you're always going to be talking about a battle. You're going to be talking about one person against another person and trying to prove that you can take that other person out by being the best that you can be. Not always trying to be like, I'm better than you. But this culture is gonna drive you to be the best that you can be. And if you embrace the culture and the theories and the rules that it has that goes along with it, you're gonna have that mentality in life. You're gonna approach everything like a battle, and you're gonna try to be the best that you can be so you can be on top. So, there you go.
Right. Audience, we need some feedback from the audience. All right, here we go. Mike, where's the mic? Mikeskee, where's the mic? Okay.
So sorry, I don't mean to cut you off real quick. I just want to take a minute. I wholeheartedly disagree with what both of these guys say. I think that if hip-hop is music that makes you want to have fun and dance and go out and have a good time with your friends and your people, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I don't think it's to the benefit of hip-hop or to the rest of us to tell you that there's something wrong with that. I mean, yes, I think the education is important, but I think the education is a result of hip-hop, not hip-hop as a result of the education. I think it's convenient to look back and say, yeah, when Kool Herc was first cutting up records in an apartment lobby, he was providing a safe environment away from gang violence. But I think it's probably more practical to say he wanted to cut some records with his friends and have a good time at a party. Now, it's important that we analyze that and look back and see the results of that and how it benefited us as a culture and how it is relevant to us in today's society and going forward. But like, I think we also ruin a too much weight on it. Like, another great example is how we think of American history, right? We talk about our founding fathers and what great, educated, brilliant people they were. You know, now we know they're a bunch of 20-year-old white guys who are playing around with experiments in their house, right? So we've actually really hurt ourselves as a
They were a
culture.
lot more than that.
I understand, but what I'm saying
Slave
is...
owners,
Right.
pedophiles, it depends whose eyes you're looking through, right?
Cannibals, if you want to go back further than that. But I'm not trying to open that whole can of worms. What I'm saying is we look back with a cultural interpretation like these people are heroes. And I think a lot of people in this room would agree that it's really important to know that they're not. It gives us a bad idea of what really happened. Now, I'm not saying that happened
But
with
you
hip-hop.
weren't there.
Right, exactly.
You've never been with, I mean,
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying.
If you listen to Van Bottom will tell you that he intentionally did certain things.
Yeah, but people were dancing to what we consider DJing, which is one of the founding elements of hip-hop before Bob Bowden was there. Hurt was doing that shit before. And he didn't do nothing with the gangs.
I just want to...
There wouldn't even be hip-hop.
Okay, fine, same time.
There wouldn't even be
Does
hip-hop.
one negate the other? If does one negate the other?
Well, it's like this. In order for them to be able to take hip-hop from borough to borough, there had to be certain individuals that was in the community that were actually teaching certain principles about peace. If you get into the history and understand the relationship of the 5% nation and why when you got off the train, you're from Brooklyn and you come into the Bronx, there's people there that say peace and escort you certain places so that things can happen. It's a lot more, you couldn't just have parties like that. So there's deeper layers to it when you sit down and you talk to people that were there, not just the icons, but just regular people that were there and that were a part of the culture at that time.
I totally agree with that, and I think it's important that we
There's
know.
people that rap.
But does it have to be all these things to rap?
Well,
What's wrong if it is just rap? If you're a graffiti artist, it's cool to just paint on a wall and do it well sometimes. What if you just rap sometimes?
I'll say this. There's a lot of B-boys in the house, right? Now, how many people are familiar with capoeira, right? And you understand the connection between capoeira and breakdancing, right? Now, what type of dance form was capoeira?
Fight dance.
Was it, huh?
Fight dance.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a matter of perspective. Maybe my perspective and your perspective, my position, existence, and your existence, you know, is different. You know, so we see, you know, and that's what this is about, dialogue to make people think, huh? It's okay, but remember hip-hop is about the battle too, like you said, right? So when you say what you say, then the battle's on, right?
If I'm just gonna interject because I'm just gonna interject. Yo, I just have to say, and this is gonna end with a question because I'm in the audience, I'm not on the panel, but like, I think you guys are both touching on just two like angles, facets of the same point. We're all like, we got this setting of cool nerds spinning this party, and one person's looking at it like, one person, and this actually probably happened, one person was looking at that party and go, wow, this is changing the world, this is making people better, and they're gonna come out of this like, not impoverished and not dangerous. And then another person looked at it and was like, yo, this is like the illest party in the world. I'm gonna go there and kick it all the time. I'm gonna be a B-boy, I'm gonna battle. This is gonna be super fun. I'm gonna get drunk, baby. And then there's another person going, dollar bills. This is the future of industry. I'm gonna be able to make money off of it. And I think that's what hip hop is, right? It's interpreted by a million different people, and we have an industry out of it, we have an underground out of it, we have like schools out of it, we have dancers, we have musicians, we have, you know, writers, we have activists, we have community leaders, and I think that's what a culture is. It's just a bunch of hella shit. So, I'm responsible for bringing y'all to this panel right here because I think y'all were like, you guys are completely different. We got a B-boy. We have someone from a long, you know, that's been with hip-hop for a long time. We have an MC educator. We have an activist, social entrepreneur, and we have a businessman, basically, right? So, I mean, that's like, this is what we wanted to hear. So, thank you for having that dialogue. And give it up for these guys.
Can I add something to his point too, though?
But we we should have some questions.
Okay, no doubt.
Yeah, is that cool? Is that
Yeah, no,
so?
one point we had.
Is it? Oh, you have a comment? Okay.
Michael Renaissance, the poet.
Yeah, I'm sure a few people know me. You know, I agree with what everyone up there is saying, but like, any MC can get onto a stage and take over that shit, turn around with everybody in the audience and walk away and not give shit back to the community. Anybody disagree with that? All right, so once an MC earns that respect, you know, where the actual community building needs to happen is after you earn that respect is turn around and get back to the community. Like this gentleman on the end was saying, you gotta build that shit, but once you earn that respect, that's when you get back. You can't teach while you're rapping. Who the fuck goes to a show and turns around and walks away and is like, man, that show changed my life. But if you got an MC that earned your respect, turns around, gets involved with something like what's going on here, starts working with some kids and mentors them on how to grow up, be educated, peaceful, build, fight for the community, then that kid's gonna turn around and be like, those people changed my life, this is how, and that's where they're gonna pass that shit back. That's where I think it needs to change.
Got another question? Yeah?
What's good? So, if hip-hop was created based off of, in a response to the systems of oppression, you know, coming out of the Bronx and everything, and a man is saying that hip-hop is not necessarily educational. However, if people are coming out of that oppression, you know what I'm saying? Are they not morally obligated to do better for their community? You know what I'm saying? And just because they're coming up with rhymes talking about la-di-da-di, that doesn't mean that that they aren't required to be a role model for the younger people. You know what I'm saying? So, where's your stance on that? You know what I'm saying? Yes. Like, with all of that in mind, you know what I'm saying? Having Bboy come with all the young people following him, you know what I'm saying? Is that not a requirement for education? Because if the fifth element is knowledge, how you gonna have knowledge without some education? You feel me?
I totally feel you. And I think there might be a slight miscommunication here. I think you are under the impression that I am not in support of hip-hop as a form of education. I certainly am. I'm a supporter of education in absolutely any and every form. I think it's the most important thing. We can all be doing it any time. That being said, what I think is important is not being excluding. It's not what hip-hop was ever meant to be. And what were survivalist tactics of hip-hop when it was in its teen years and its 20 years, you know, in its 20s, don't necessarily need to be the same tactics of it as it enters its 40s. Hip-hop is alive. It doesn't need to survive anymore. It doesn't need to hang on to the nail. At this point, I think what is important is not telling people you can't be hip-hop. You don't do this. You're a bad rapper, so you can't be hip-hop. You don't give back to the community. You can't be hip-hop. Don't tell anybody they can't do anything. If people suck, people suck. If the internet has taught us anything, we're all better for suffering a few extra people who are not good at what they do to access to maybe the one or two brilliant people that take hip-hop to the next realm it can be. Don't expect it to go somewhere because you think it should go there. Some cat you don't even know about or haven't thought of or have no relevant connection to. I don't, you don't, you're absolutely right. We see things differently. But let that kid we're not even thinking of come up, grow, be his own, and flourish and take hip-hop somewhere new. Part of loving something is letting go of it.
Well, this will be the last question.
I have a question, I have a comment. As far as you saying, like, let anyone do it, if they suck, they suck. I'm a music reporter, and I gotta say, if you're bad, you need to stop. I'm tired of hearing whack rappers, I'm tired of hearing redundant lyrics. I respect you and your company, what you know a lot of people who work with you. And if you're not a good MC, you need to know that. You need to move on and make space for people who are good and who are talking about something that's not redundant. Maybe I'm not Jesus, but I'm just saying, like, I'm tired. We're tarnishing the name of hip-hop by saying anyone can do it. of a rapper. So we do need to make a standard as to what hip-hop is and what talent is. You can't tell anyone not to follow their passions, but someone's got to say, I'm tired of hearing Soulshifters boys. Someone's got to say, Gucci Man's talking a bunch of bullshit. Someone's got to say, when to stop it.
I think what we're talking about is like awareness, you know what I mean? So, to me it's like hip-hop can be represented as a party, as a political statement, as all of that. To take it back to the Cool Herc block party thing, yeah, it was a party, but the party was to raise money for his sister to get some school equipment, for school supplies, because she broke, because the schools ain't shit. And they ain't trying to teach nobody. So, but we're gonna kick it any motherfucking ways. Because it's, you know, we're trying to live our life, you know, because if we were at least trying to live our life as if we already had what we had. So it's not really about, I don't think it's really about, I totally agree with you on the kid who should just grow up to be whoever they want to be, and just life should represent itself in a unique way with us, without us trying to fuck with it. But at the same time, I think what we're talking about is just education and letting people know these things, to have the awareness. Because if you're gonna come, if not you, but if a rapper comes out and is rapping about, you know, a Soulja Boy, you know what I'm saying? But if Soulja Boy does not understand certain things and doesn't have the history, and that's being consumed because the you know, a corporate industry is trying to dumb you down on purpose, then you know, you're kind of being duped, and then you don't really get that education. So I think you know, Soulja Boy should be able to rap. I'm just saying, Soulja Boy should not be the only one out there on, you know, MTV. And MTV is a gang of Soulja Boys right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got, you know, so
we gotta keep it moving, you know.
So basically, I'm gonna try to wrap this up real quick. I'm not gonna talk too long. But hip hop has always been about showing, improving, and pulling files. Alright? So if you go out and you're whack, you better tell someone that that person's whack. If you don't have the heart to tell someone that they're whack or call them out in a battle, then your culture is not going to grow. It's not going to get any better. You're going to have a bunch of whack people patting each other on the back, talking about how dope are we while everyone else is passing you by. Right? You're talking about the rap industry. The rap industry it has nothing to do with hip hop. Alright, you're talking about Soulja Boy and these people, and you ask them anything about the history of hip hop or the elements of hip hop, they'll tell you it has something to do with music. Alright, we're talking about a culture, we're talking about art forms, and we're talking about history. And if you don't know the history, you're gonna be left behind. You know, it's basically what it is. When I started breaking, I wasn't dope, I was whack. And you know what? People told me in my face, yo, you're whack. So what did I do? Did I quit? Did I go home? Did I curl up in a ball and cry? No. I went home, I got in the lab, I went back, I battled the person that said I was back, I took him out and I got my props. That's the only reason why I became who I am and I got better. So if you want to sit around and look in the mirror and tell yourself that you're fresh, you can do that all day long. But the minute someone else tells you you're whack, you'll be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I am whack. And the only way you're going to get better is by doing that. So
I think that wraps us. All right, that wraps us. I just want to have a closing statement based on what he said, and that hip-hop is about being the best, right? Being the best you, not necessarily being better than the next part. That's part of it, but it's really about being the best you. So when we look internally at hip-hop, is what's the best in hip-hop that we can bring to the world. And we can bring the negative, we can bring garbage, or we can bring something that actually makes the world a better place. And so I think we should really be challenging ourselves on that. And the last thing to David's point is that we don't want to end up with symbols without substance. You know, where we just have, you know, the motions, but you don't have no real understanding of the ground that you stand on. So definitely you gotta go deeper, you gotta dig. When you hear the word cipher, there has to be knowledge and wisdom and understanding to have a cipher. Cipher's not just people standing in a circle, you know, so it does get deeper, and we can't get it all here, but we can have a cipher the hip-hop way in the back when this is over. But, you know, appreciate everybody paying attention. Mike, you got some final words?
Oh man, I just want to say again, each individual right here has put in work, they've earned their stripes. You know, despite it seeming for a second like it was a grill of Dave, even though he probably enjoyed it. That's the point. You these guys know they have their knowledge with their background, you know what I'm saying? And that's what it's about. This was education right here. I learned a shit ton. You guys who listen probably did too. So once again, thank y'all for being a part of this. And
the knowledge is good. The knowledge is good.